Okay. Well, it is 7 o'clock, so I think we'll get started in respect of everyone's time. So I'm missing, just so I have a little list here, Michael and Tracy and Rochelle are missing at the moment. And they'll show up on my list here if they join us. So for the trustees that are here, if possible, if you could put your camera on, if not, that's okay. And please turn your microphones off for everyone so we don't get any feedback. And we'll get started. Because we've missed a couple of meetings, we have a bit of backlog just to get some business passed through a board meeting. So that's what we're doing tonight. So I'm going to call the special regular meeting of the board of February 25th, 2024 to order. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional land of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which is represented by the communities of Saugeen First Nation and the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation. We also think of the Métis Nation of Ontario, whose history and people are well represented in Bruce and Grey counties. We have not received regrets from anyone this evening. Approval of the agenda. Could I have a mover and seconder that the agenda for the special regular meeting of the board of February 25th be approved as printed? I see Trustee Lutz and Trustee Johnstone. All in favor?
Are we going to use the little hand thing, Jane?
It's great if we use the little hand thing. Does everyone see where the raise your hand is on the top? And then it's easy for me to just do that. So thank you. That is carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest on any of the items on our agenda this evening? I see none. So we've had two committee of the whole meetings that we have reports coming from this evening. So the first is the committee of the whole board from January 7th, 2025. And that's the meeting we had so many field trips that we need to go back and have a final approval of those. So people will have had an opportunity. We discussed them at the committee of the whole on January 7th. It's a ways back, but for the groups to move forward with the next steps in their planning, we need to have final approval at the board level. So I will be the mover on the following 8 recommendations, and I'll be looking for a seconder for each of them. So first, that the Blue Water District School Board approve that Georgian Bay Community School students participate in the Pursuits Program field trips, Bruce Trail, Cypress, April 29th to May 2nd, 2025. Peterborough and Kawartha Highlands, May 27th to 30th, 2025, and Temagami, June 12th to 12th to June 2022, of 2025. Could I have a seconder? I see Fran, Trustee Morgan, sorry. Is there any further discussion on that trip? I don't see any. All in favor? 1, 2, 3. Thank you. That is carried. Next, that Blue Water District School Board approve that Blue Water summer school students participate in the Civics and Careers Travel for Credit, Ottawa, Montreal, and New York field trip, July 17th to 24th, 2025. Moved by myself, seconded by Trustee McComb. Any further discussion or questions on this one? I see none. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you, and that is carried. Trustee Morgan, you were opposed? The Blue Water District School Board approved that Blue Water Summer School students participate in the Communications Technology Toronto and New York City field trip, July 14th to 25th, 2025. It's seconded by Trustee Johnstone. Any further conversation or questions on this trip? Trustee Lutz?
Thanks. I just realized I have a question that applies to this and the previous one. Because they're for credit, is there a plan that will still cover all of the travel for credit requirements if there are travel advisories against going to the US at the time of the trips?
Thanks for the question. Through the chair, we have been in touch with EF Tours, and they are working on some alternative plans for a trip that would not involve the states in both situations. We're just looking at those alternatives, knowing that that might very well happen, and we would still be able to grant the credits. Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Good question. Any other questions or comments? So it was moved by myself, seconded by Trustee Johnstone. All in favor? That is carried. Next, that Blue Water District School Board approved that Grey Highlands secondary school students participate in the Environmental Studies Program field trips, Flesherton Pond and Basic Canoe Instruction Day 1, April 29th, 2025. Flesherton Pond Basic Canoe Instruction Day 2, April 30th, 2025. Stripers Lake Camping Trip, May 7th to 9, 2025. Bells Lake Canoe Trip, May 13, 2025. Flesherton Pond Solo Canoe Instruction Day, May 14th, 2025. Flesherton Pond Solo Canoe Instruction Day 2, May 15th, 2025. Massasauga Provincial Park Canoe Trip, May 21st to 24th, 2025. And Killarney Provincial Park, May 8th to 14th. Could I have a seconder for that? Trustee Morgan. Any further questions or conversation on this field trip? I see none. All in favor? Thank you. That is carried. The next field trip is that the Blue Water District School Board approved that East Ridge Community School students participate in the Cultural Exchange to Alberta from May 25th to 31st, 2025. It's moved by myself, seconded by Trustee McComb. Any questions or conversation? All in favor? Trustee Morgan, 4. Thank you.
Yeah, and-
That is.
And point of order, Chair Thompson, do you see that Tracy is here?
I do not.
That's what I thought. So just to let you know that she's on the second page.
Okay.
So maybe Trustee Atkinson, you could just use the your little raise your hand on the top of the screen as opposed to the visual, so that Trustee Thompson knows that you're here and voting. Thank you. Present and voting.
Thank you for pointing that out. Next, that Blue Water District School Board approved that Eastridge Community School students participate in the French Immersion Cultural Exchange to Alberta from June 8th to 14th, 2025. Moved by myself, seconded by Trustee Morgan. And any conversation questions? All in favor? Great, thank you. That's carried. Appreciate that, Tracy. And the next one, that Blue Water District School Board approved that Alexandra Community School students participate in the Alberta Cultural Exchange from May 25th to 31st, 2025. Trustee Morgan, are you seconding that? Any other questions or comments on this trip? All in favor? And that is carried. And the last recommendation coming out of this meeting was that Blue Water District School Board approved that Amabel Sauble Community School students participate in the grade 8 Alberta Exchange from June 8th to 14th, 2025. Trustee Lutz, you seconding?
Yes, and I forgot to put my hand down, but both are true.
Perfect, thank you. Any questions or comments on this trip? I see none. All in favor? Perfect, that is carried. So the next item on our agenda is the recommendations from the Committee of the Whole Board from February 4th. There are 3 recommendations coming out of this Committee of the Whole Board meeting, and Vice Chair Johnstone chaired this, so I'm going to turn this part of the meeting over to her.
Thank you, Chair Thompson. So I'm going to be going back and forth between screens, so because I didn't print it out. So I'm going to put the first motion on. So, okay. So there are three recommendations. I'll be the mover, and I'll be looking for someone to second. So the first one is that the Blue Water District School Board approve that John Diefenbaker senior school students participate in the Europe Cultural and Reflective Field Trip March 13th to the 21st, 2026, contingent that it aligns with all travel advisories at the time of the trip. Can I have a mover for that, please? Thank you, Trustee Atkinson. Is there any further discussion or questions concerning that trip? I see none. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. You can put your hands down. Next. I'm just going to do next there. That the Blue Water District School Board approve the 2025-2026 draft elementary and secondary school year calendars for the submission to the Ministry of Education. I moved it and I'm looking for somebody to second that. Thank you, Trustee Morgan. Any further questions or comments concerning that motion before you? And I see none. All in favor? Okay, and that is carried. Thank you very much. And then the last one, and I'll be moving that the Blue Water District School Board approve the draft letter provided by the Special Education Advisory Committee regarding special education funding and educational assistant shortage to send to the Minister of Education. Can I have a mover? Thank you, Trustee Atkinson. Any further questions or comments concerning that motion before you? I see none. All in favor? Okay. Okay. And okay, so can you do that again for me, please? So okay, just again, put your hand, use your little hand things. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and that is carried. Sorry about that. I was trying to count. And that is it for me. You're muted, Jane.
I'll say thank you again. So the next thing on our agenda is a trustee vacancy, the last thing on our agenda. So I'm going to invite Director of Education Wilder to speak to this report and recommendation.
Thanks. Good evening, everyone. This certainly is reminiscent of some other times when we were joining virtually all the time, but it's kind of a nice way to get business done, it seems. So in regards to this report, we have a trustee vacancy created in accordance with Section 2281B of the Education Act, and the board is required to determine the process for filling this vacancy. The Education Act defines the options for filling a vacancy, which is captured in Section 221. There are two options open to the board. And the first option is the current elected members shall appoint a qualified person to fill the vacancy within 90 days of the vacancy being created. Or option 2, require that an election be held in accordance with the Municipal Elections Act 1996 at the expense of the board within the same time period. I'll turn it back to you, Chair.
Thank you. So we would be recommending that we do not do an election. We've heard from many of our other boards, the expense that goes along with that, the low turnout in terms of the voting. Most recently, I heard from a Hamilton board that they had very low turnout. So we're recommending that we appoint a qualified person to fill the vacancy within 90 days. But of course, we're sitting here to have a conversation. So I'm opening the floor for that conversation right now. So Tracy, I'll ask you what you have your hand up.
Yeah, if you remember back in 2018 when I was elected, it was through a by-election, and I gathered some data, and so in the area that I'm from, so that would be West Grey in the town of Hanover, the population is 21,000 with both included. The votes were only 719, so that's less than 3%. So I am in favor of appointing someone. That when I was elected, it was phone, a computer, and in person. So, and at the time, I can remember asking the municipal clerk what this cost was and who bared the cost. And of course, it was a school board, and he told me that it could be anywhere from $5,000 and under 10. That's a huge expense for 719 votes. So I'm not in favor of the by-election.
Any other comments before we, Tracy or Katie, sorry.
Thanks. Is my microphone on?
Yep.
Okay. I think I missed turning it off at one point. So I definitely agree about not going through the expense of an election, especially given that we currently are in a provincial election. There's likely a federal one on the horizon. Trustee by-election would get lost in the shuffle and would be expensive. And my only question is, has there been thought put into how we would go about looking to do an appointment, or is that a separate conversation once we decide if that's the route we're going? Thanks.
I would say that's a separate, I mean, there's a recommendation on the floor, like that you've seen in your package. So if we decide to go the route of appointing, I think there's an opportunity to have a conversation and decide which route we want to go in terms of the appointment. So I guess right now we're looking to see if anyone really feels that we need to be doing an election, and whether we need to be putting that in. So is there anyone that feels the route of the election is the way we should be going? I'm going to ask in the negative. If you think that we should be considering that, please put your hand up and we will consider that. I see no one doing that. So I think what that tells us is that we can put the motion on the floor that Blue Water District School Board appoint a replacement as per legislation, and then we'll figure out the specifics of that. So I see Jan moving it and a seconder, Trustee Morgan. So what you have in, some suggestions, I guess, motions. We have a couple of ways of appointing. We can go with the person that came in second, or we could go to an application process. So based on what you're seeing before you, I think we're recommending it was a close election, looking at the person that came in second. And there were two candidates, so looking at second and third or third. And then if neither of them were interested in the position at this point, I mean, 2 years are passed since they put their name forward, that we would be looking at doing applications and appointing a person that way. I think the logic in part is that it is a time-consuming process to go through the application process, and we did have a close election, but we can open that up for conversation now. So, Trustee Morgan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I feel that if we're talking about an elected position, that we should be looking at runners up in that election field. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Johnstone. You're muted.
I agree. I believe that the communities would be represented better by somebody who actually was from those communities. And I understand that both those individuals live within that district or those districts.
Thank you. Anybody else have comments? Trustee Lutz, did you want to add anything?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I just wondered from your previous comments if you had something to say. Anybody else have anything to add? I see none.
Actually,
so go ahead.
Can I just ask one question? So we know
Yep.
it was a close election with the first runner-up. Was it also close to the third? Or like, I'm just wondering if so I'm getting the consensus from people that the ideal thing is the first runner-up, or ideal candidate, I shouldn't say thing. And Crystal has her hand up, so I'll see what she has to say.
Through the chair. So the first place candidate received 1,586 votes. The second place candidate received 1,377 votes, and the third place candidate received 1,058 votes.
Thank you, Crystal. So all very close. So I'm going to, I think what I'm seeing for consensus, and you know, please put your hand up if you have a question or you're concerned about the process, because this is new for us. It's new for me. But we would look at the first runner-up from that election and approach them. And if they were not interested, we'd look at the second runner-up. And if they were not interested, then we would be looking at an application process to fill that position. And the motions that will follow will support that. So Trustee Johnstone?
Yeah, I just was concerned that we hadn't dealt with that first motion.
I appreciate that. So I was just wanting to give people a bit of context in case there was something they were missing or wanted to add before we got into that. So I'm going to go with the first motion. I'll look for a mover and a seconder that Blue Water District School Board approach the candidate who came second on the ballot during the most recent.
Point of order. You still didn't deal with the first motion. The first motion that.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was getting at.
Is that what you're saying?
No, we didn't. Yeah.
So it was moved by Trustee Johnstone, thank you. Seconded by Trustee Morgan that Blue Water District School Board appoint a replacement trustee as per legislation. All in favor? Thank you. So that is carried. All right, thank you. So next, it's through the process of how we will approach that. So first, that Blue Water District School Board approach the candidate who came second on the ballot during the most recent municipal election for the Township of Southgate and the Municipality of Grey Highlands and offer them the position of trustee for the remainder of the term of the board. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Trustee McComb and Trustee Johnstone. Is there any discussion on that? Or questions? Trustee Miles. No, Crystal, go ahead.
I think the motion needs to be taken as a whole, so that it's part of it's like a 3-part process.
I
That it would
see.
be a full motion.
All right, so saying that, the second part of that would be, and if the second place candidate declines, approach the candidate who came third on the ballot during the most recent municipal election for the Township of Southgate and the Municipality of Grey Highlands and offer them the position of trustee for the remainder of the term. And if the third place candidate declines, that Blue Water District School Board invite applications from qualified people who are interested in serving as a trustee for the balance of the current term, and that a selection process be completed so as to finalize the appointment no later than May 5th, 2025. Thank you, Crystal. So that was moved by Trustee McComb, seconded by Trustee Johnstone. Is there any discussion on that full motion? I see none. All in favor? 2, 3. That is carried. Thank you. So we are adjourned at 7:30. Could I have a mover and seconder, please? Trustee Johnstone, Trustee Lutz, Safe home, everyone.
No.
Good night, everyone. Thank you so much.
That was fun. It did bring back memories.
Yeah.